It's okay to be curious. It's okay to be smart. It's okay to go after what you want. And, if everybody wants you to act differently, you don't need to do it. You should be true to yourself and you should follow your gut. And you usually will do okay at the end of the day if you are true to yourself.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to my show. My name is Tiffany, and this is Unveiling Journeys. So excited to have you today. I have an amazing guest, as always, for you. Let me just tell you a quick second about me. I I love hanging out with people. I love meeting new people, being introduced to new people, and I love hearing their stories and being able to share those with everybody, which is how the podcast got started. Because whenever you hang out with someone and you're really curious as to what their story is, you can't help but say, "Oh my gosh, there are some people that I want you to know. Can I introduce you to them?" Or I'm giving you permission right now, but you can actually say, "Hey, do you know anybody that you think I should know?" It's like asking for a referral because you just never know. They hadn't thought of it and they didn't know you were willing to accept a referral. So, a lot of the ways that the world goes round and round in small, medium business is through the power of word of mouth. And I get to share some of the neatest people I've ever met in my life here with you on the show, which is why I keep going. And I get to introduce you today to my next guest. Welcome. I'm so excited to have you here, Diana. We, of course, met through the power of networking. Someone was like, "You got to know my friend." I was like, "Please tell me now. Let's meet." And so we got to hang out before us coming live on the show today. And I get to introduce her. So tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you're up to right now.
Hey, hello, everybody. I'm Diana. My name's Diana Sussman. I am currently a writer and I have just written a Maddie Mystery. It's The Neighbor's Secret. It's a middle grade mystery geared for 10 plus in terms of age. And it's the first book in a series of Maddie Mysteries. The second book is currently with the publisher. It's called The Texter's Secret. And before I became a writer, and also super important, I am a mom. I am a retired litigation attorney. When I was a kid, I did acting. Love solving mysteries. I love reading. I love writing. And grew up in New York, currently in Connecticut, and lived in Bermuda for 8 years, where the third book of the Maddie series is actually set. And I just love meeting people. I love finding out about people, learning. I'm very curious. And that curiosity has driven me the entire way. And I'm so excited that I got to meet Tiffany
I love
because
this. This is so fun. You have such a good story that I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I wanna tell people so bad about everything you're doing." And of course, I have an almost 9-year-old, and it's like, of course, she's gonna be all excited to go through your series because she loves reading all this kind of stuff. So, being able to share something close to my heart, but be able to share your incredible story so I can, like, put the word out more for you. I wanna tell your whole story. Like, let's start from the beginning. I wanna, like, unveil your journey properly. Where are you from? And I know you said you were a litigation attorney. Is that what you knew what you wanted to be growing up and what you went to school for?
it's interesting. I was born in New York, so I'm a native New Yorker. And growing up, I wanted to be many things, but pretty early on, I wanted to be a detective. I was inspired by reading all those Nancy Drew books when I was around 8 or so. And I loved solving mysteries, loved, puzzling and things. And I still like do every single puzzle you could possibly think of. And I was going to do it, become a detective or an FBI agent for a while. That was like a big goal of mine at one point. But then I decided to become a lawyer instead. And I must say, being a lawyer is also a great, you know, base as a writer because you're exposed to so many different scenarios of all the different cases. And one of my cases was about a double life person who lived this double life. And basically, he had a family in New Jersey and he had another family in Italy. And they didn't know about each other until he fired all the kids in his family business from one family to hire the kids of the other one. And then all of a sudden, it was litigation. And it was a fascinating story. But the guy had really not told either family about the other one. And everybody was very surprised that, he had this double life because they all thought he was this devoted husband, father kind of person. although he wasn't actually married to the person in Italy. But anyway, the bottom line is it really gives you interesting, fodder for future uses. And I also
Yeah.
represented people who were being targeted by the FBI and being interrogated and targets and witnesses. And so that gave me a little bit of insight in how the FBI works and what they do and what it's like to defend someone who's being interrogated, even if they're just a witness. And I just think that it's a fabulous, fabulous base to get a lot of inspiration for stories. And I was also an actress as a child. I did commercials, plays, musicals. In fact, also written a play and a musical, but that's another conversation we could have later. Um, Both of them were New York City She Arts Award winners, which I was pretty proud of because they were the first time I actually did anything like that and submitted that. And in being an actress, I got to say, when you are given a role and you have to play say a line or whatever, it's not just saying a line if you're a good actress. And, I've heard many actors and actresses say this, so I can't say this is original, but you really have to create a history for this character. Why are they saying this? Why are they reacting like this? Why don't they react a different way? What is it that they went through in their life that caused them to be in this position now and reacting in this manner as opposed to some other manner? And I got to say that again is another inspiration for writing because you are creating stories of the characters that you portrayed. And, you're reading a script, of course, but how you read that script and why those words make sense for your character in that moment is up to you in creating your story. So I loved all those aspects of my life. And I also love music. I love playing piano. I sing. I did play guitar, but it hurt my fingers too much to play with the strings because they used to give me calluses. So I kind of skipped over to piano. And I just, I have a fun journey.
Yeah. I love how even just wanting to be a detective as a kid, the work that you've done is like putting on your detective hat to like analyze and go this and see the different perspectives and personalities. Even being an actress, like you're figuring out who these people are to like live and be that person to figure out, like you said, why the words they were saying, why they would say that in that perspective. That's an interesting take that I guess I'd never considered to have to know the whole you have to make up like a backstory, right? If you're just given even one line, right, to be doing in something. Tell me some of the like the transition points from like going to school to like your first work, because I mean, your first work really started as a childhood acting and whatnot. Like, what are some of these like moments that we could dissect a little bit to I want to tell like more of your story so bad.
Okay, so, when I was really little, I did television commercials, which is really fun. It's actually a really exciting thing. But I gotta say, it's you gotta have a no ego, because I mean, people are not shy to say no, too tall, too fat, too high a voice, too low a voice, too this, too that. And I used to get a lot of roles in television commercials, in part because I could read well and I appeared older. And as I basically got older, it became harder because like the 20 something year olds are playing the 16-year-old roles, and you're competing with that. And also I kind of wanted to focus on school, and you have to go on a lot of calls, when you're looking at television. But I did do a lot of theater in terms of acting in basically middle school, high school, college, law school. Even I was at the law school light opera, and I even directed and choreographed a show once. So that was kind of fun. I love creating in almost every single
Yeah.
media. So basically, I love cooking. I love making, like, my friends know that I make these crazy cakes that are insane. I've made football fields for Super Bowl. I've made deflated cakes for deflated footballs on the football field for Deflator Gate in the Super Bowl. I've made violins and cellos for people. I've done baby cakes. I've done when my daughter was little, I did a standing Rapunzel cake with like the hair going all the way down. And that was kind of fun. And so I do love creating, and I love creating stories about people, and I love bringing up history because I am a bit of a geek. And That's one of the things that I really enjoyed about writing The Neighbor's Secret is, first of all, I did create, a very, very lengthy backstory for Maddie. So what you see on the page in the book, of course, is the story. But, I know her favorite color. I know every, food she likes, what she doesn't like, what tips her off, what makes her happy, what music she likes. I went through the entire background to really flesh out the character before I wrote her.
That is so neat to think that, because I hadn't even thought of this stuff. So I like knowing what I didn't know, because but this is so cool to know about how all of this stuff works.
Perfect. Yeah, it was a perfect transition in a way because, like I said, I love mysteries. I love reading. I love research, and I also love performing. And when you're an attorney, you're always performing.
Yeah.
When you go through motion practice and you stand up before a judge, if you go to a trial, I didn't actually get to perform before a jury. I helped other attorneys who did, because I worked at law firms and I was an associate and you help the partner and the partner might do the opening speech just like on LA Law and that kind of stuff that you see. But you're connecting with your audience in every single case and you're going through roomfuls of documents and pages and figuring out what are the salient facts and what story do these facts tell and why is my client right and your client wrong based on the law that exists today. And if you can tell your story more and make that more relatable to your audience, which is the judge, the jury, whatever it is, then that's an opportunity for you to get a win for your client. As a
Makes
result,
yeah.
I really did use my, other areas of interest in practicing law as a result. And I was very creative. So I didn't look at things just like that, straight down the line. I like looking at things out of the box and approaching things in different ways. And a lot of times they used to give me these, what they would call dog cases, where they thought they were going to be dead losers. And then basically, I would find different ways to present the issue and to marry it to certain precedent that showed that actually, no, we're actually in the right. And then all of a sudden it became this big to do. And then a lot of times the cases just settled as a result because most cases actually don't go to trial. They do settle before they go to trial.
So how long were you there, and what did you just do next after that?
So I went to, well, first I went to college, which I forgot about to tell you. A Blue Devil, very proud Blue Devil. I went to Duke University and then I went to University of Pennsylvania Law School, which is now the Carey Penn Law School. And I then went to Wilkie Farr and Gallagher and worked in their offices in New York and then decided I needed a little bit of a life. Just to give you a perspective, I remember going home at 8:30 at night and thinking I was so thrilled I'm not going home at like 3:30 because I used to do that regularly. I mean, the hours I kept were insane. In fact, they have 3 shifts of support staff at the big law firms. And I remember the woman who is in like I guess the 2 to 8 um shift, she came into me. We used to be friendly and we chatted, and she worked outside my office. And she said, this may be my job right now, but it's your life. And, the resume went out not that long after. And I wound up moving to a litigation boutique in New Jersey, which is where I wound up. Basically getting the cases about the double life, and a lot of the partners were ex FBI agent attorneys, and so I got a lot of practice with that and it was really exciting. It was really fun. I really enjoyed practicing, but that all came to an end when I had my son and I was on maternity leave. And then I had an opportunity, well, my husband had an opportunity for his job to move to Bermuda. And we wound up moving to Bermuda for 8 years. So I
What? That's
wound
so
up
fun.
it was amazing. I mean, really amazing. I mean, you get to see life through a completely different lens. For example, I never realized, being born and raised in the United States, how honestly egocentric our our news is and our education is. Like when you go to school, you learn about American history over and over and over again. There's a whole world behind beyond the 250 years we've been around. But happy 4th of July. Basically, um, when you're in Bermuda, the kids get taught world history, which is like, the world, a much older
Yeah.
place. And so they actually got a pretty good background from that perspective. And in addition, I got to explore so many different avenues and give back. And I wound up running every single charity virtually in Bermuda in some way, shape, or form. And my husband was like, okay, you've run every charity, you got to go. So that we wound up coming back to Connecticut. And that's where I've been ever since. And I love it here.
Oh my gosh. Is it really true? Like, it's just an island way of life? Like, it's just such a breath of fresh air from leaving New York, you know?
It's a completely different culture. Basically, it's very personality driven. So, no joke. These are things that really happened. I moved into Bermuda, and when you go to Bermuda, you have to have your house sprayed. And basically, for bugs, because it's a very tropical environment. If you don't get it sprayed all the time, you can get bugs. You don't want bugs, so you get your house sprayed. So basically, I called up the pest control person and said, "Hi, I just moved to Bermuda, got at this, I'm in this house." And basically the person was like, "Well, do you know who sprayed your house before? Because they're going to know all the nooks and crannies. They're going to know what's really wrong with your house. You don't want to use us unless, you really, you know, can't find the person that did your house before because they're the ones you should use." And like, they're just so nice. Like they're not money driven. Like I can't see anybody like turning away new business here, or when I tried to get the newspaper delivered, there's one paper in all of Bermuda. It's called the Royal Gazette. And basically, I called up and said, "Hi, I'd like to order the Royal Gazette." And they said, "Well, what length of subscription would you like?" And I said, "Well, what do you offer?" And he said, "A month, 6 months, and a year." And I said, "Okay, well, I'll take a year." And they said, "Didn't you say you just moved to Bermuda?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, you can't get a year subscription. You've never read our paper. You don't know if you're going to like our paper." And I'm like, "You're the only paper on the island. I'm going to love your paper." And they're like, "No, no, no, no. You need to get a month, try it out." And then, anyway, we wound up compromising after a long conversation for 6 months. And that 6 month subscription lasted a year because if it rained or they didn't feel like coming, you didn't get your paper. So, because they would ride on little motorcycles to get your paper. And then, basically, you would call and say, "Hi, I didn't get my paper today." And they'd say, "Would you like to extend it to your subscription?" I'd say, "Sure, that would be great." And they would extend it and that would be it. But, so again, it was like, it was not like money driven, it's relationship driven. Or when I had little kids, like really little kids, 2 and 4, and I switched houses and needed to get a new cable TV installed in my house. And the first thing I got was, "Honey, we are not doing this for 6 months. We're really busy." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I said, "Do you have any kids?" And I started chatting her up. Turned out our kids were the same age. We had a lot of things in common. We talked for like 10 minutes. And I said, "By the way, what's the date for when you'll be able to bring, the cable guy in to install my TVs?" And she looked at me and she, said to me on the phone, "You have 2 little kids. I'm going to have them there tomorrow morning. They're going to go crazy without TV."
I know, right?
So like they're super nice people, but it is culturally very different. And in
100%.
in a wonderful way.
That's so cool, though. So wait, you moved back to Connecticut. I mean, you're no longer running a bunch of charities. What do you do then? And I know you
Did
got a lot of
actually
inspiration while you're in Bermuda for writing these stories. So I know we're going to dive into that.
And I did actually do more charity work when I got back here for sure. And I basically ran the cultural arts programs for our town, and I did the arts more programs, and I was class mom for years. And even in Bermuda, I helped create a science curriculum because they would just sort of read it and test on it. And I was like, no, no, no. Science, to understand it and enjoy it and really has to be experienced. So I created experiment days, and you would actually see like light bending and colors changing and magnetism. And they would see in action what they'd read about. So it wasn't this dry, boring thing. It was an exciting thing. And it was kind of fun. And so, I helped with that sort of thing in Westport as well, which is where I live. And I absolutely love my town. I have a wonderful, wonderful community, and I'm so proud to be a part of it. And there's so many artists, and there's so much culture and art in our town. It's a pretty wonderful place to live.
That's so neat. Oh my goodness. And meanwhile, you are just a gem to your children because you're just like the fun mom. I feel like you're bringing life to everything that they're doing. So you're heavily involved. That's so cool. And now at this point, they're going away off to college and starting their own families and all this stuff. And you're at home writing these books. Like, tell me more about how the next chapter of your life is going.
No pun intended, right?
I know, right?
Basically, just as you were saying, like even when the kids were around, I used to, fool around with different beginnings of different books. And I probably still have a few on my computer. But when they all, went to college and, as I call it, became real people because they started, working and becoming adults, I said, I've always loved writing. I started a book when I was much, much younger, and, still in high school. And when I came back from my college, my from a vacation, my mom had cleaned my entire room out, thrown out like 90% of my stuff, including the book that I had handwritten in a spiral, in spiral notebooks. So it wasn't like I could just recreate it off the computer. So that book was gone. But at any rate, I decided to get back into storytelling. And I started with picture book ideas. And then I was reading an article about a nanoscientist who was a professor at Harvard who had gotten arrested for selling secrets to the Wuhan University. And I was very curious about, I wonder how many other ordinary seeming people are actually spies and doing something, giving information to other countries. So I started researching because I do love researching. And I found out something called FBI Operation Ghost Stories. And basically, it's a real operation that they ran where they found 10 people who were posing as ordinary Americans, and they were really Russian spies. And 8 of them coupled up and actually had children, and 2 of them stayed as, you know, just single individuals. And I was thinking about that. And I was thinking, wow, what would it be like? Because one of them had been caught. Actually, all 10 of them had been caught. And one of them had, one family was living in Cambridge outside of Harvard. Each of these families were sort of stationed near big think tanks or people of influence so that they could get information and send it back to Russia. And these kids didn't, like, one child came home on his like 21st birthday or something and found that his parents were getting arrested and he wasn't who he was and his brother wasn't who he was and his parents weren't who they were. I mean, talk about, stunning. So I decided, wouldn't it be kind of neat if a 12-year-old girl figured out that there were Russian spies in her neighborhood? And so I decided to go off on that idea. And in The Neighbor's Secret, Maddie thinks her new neighbors are Russian spies. But Maddie's also a normal 12-year-old girl who skipped a grade. She's very precocious. And she and her best friend both happen to crush on the son of the new neighbors that she thinks are spies. So basically, she's got this wonderful, perfect, disastrous triangle where if she gets the guy to like her, she really shouldn't be going after her parents if they're Russian spies, but she really is determined to solve the mystery. And of course, if the guy does like her best friend's going to hate her because her best friend's also crushing on her. And she really wants to preserve the friendship. And so she's kind of in a no win situation. But it's a fun story and it takes very unexpected turns. And I don't want to tell too much, but let me put it this way. The second book that I'm writing, that is with the publisher right now, The Texter's Secret, that should hopefully be coming out soon, but I can't tell you a date because I don't have it yet. And I don't, but you can, but I will be very excited to share that date when I do get it. And I will be doing that on my website, dianasussmanwrites.com, and on my social media, which is also Diana Sussman Writes of Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
So basically, that book begins when the spies she helped get arrested are released, and she gets a very threatening text, and she doesn't know who sent it.
Yeah.
So I won't tell you any more than that,
No,
but
no.
it's very fun.
Now, this is so much fun. And by the way, I know you can't sit still. So you're still doing so much, but why do you keep showing up? Why do you keep doing what you're doing right now?
You know, it's not like I can even stop myself. I have stories inside that are just jumping to come out. And I also am doing it because in middle grade in particular, I started writing in that genre because that is a very tough period of time for girls. I saw it with my own daughter. Of course, I lived it myself. My son not so bad, but girls have it tougher, I think. And it's when you're finding yourself, you're figuring out who you are, and you're also under a lot of pressure to appear how everybody expects you to appear to fit in. And one of the things I wanted to do in writing my books is to give all readers, but particularly girls, the role models so that they know it's okay to be yourself. It's okay to be curious. It's okay to be smart. It's okay to go after what you want. And, if everybody wants you to act differently, you don't need to do it. You should be true to yourself and you should follow your gut. And you usually will do okay at the end of the day if you are true to yourself. And it's just such a hard time, and you're so influenced now, especially by all the social media, um to just be like whoever it is the influencers that you see, or the friends that have always got the greatest posts on, and you have this FOMO of what am I missing and why wasn't I invited and blah, blah, blah. But I think if you really focus on what you love and who you are and get confidence in standing up for what you believe in, I think that's important. And I think it's okay to see strong role models, which is one of the reasons like I love to. I'm like I said, I'm a bit of a geek. So I mix some history into my mystery. And basically, one of the things Maddie, the main character, uh, is doing is she's researching this agent 355 for a history presentation. They all have to present something. And her presentation about Agent 355 is about this woman who was a spy and discovered that Benedict Arnold was a traitor. And he was selling secrets of a fort called West Point, which still exists in New York. And that was like the key fort for the colonists during the American Revolution. And if she had not figured this out and had the letter intercepted from Benedict Arnold to the British admiral that he was sending it to, then the British would have figured out a way to basically take over West Point, and the war might not have ended with as the American Revolution. It might have been the American Rebellion or something.
Yeah.
So, basically, she was instrumental in basically making sure that the colonists won the revolution. So you look at a character like that, she's not usually taught in the schools. Nobody know who she really was. But Maddie in the book has a couple of interesting theories. And, there are theories out there. They've all themselves admitted that they're failed theories. They have some fatal flaws in all of them. So they don't know who she was. And it was fun to weave that in because I wanted, again, readers to see a strong female character who, women can do great things. And I want to inspire the next generation to be true to themselves, to be confident, and to be curious.
I love this. I love your heart in this so much. There's some people that are thinking, "Wait, I want to get to know you more. Like I just want to follow you." What is your favorite way for someone to reach out to you?
Okay, so my website is dianasussmanwrites.com. And my Instagram and Facebook are also dianasussmanwrites.com. And if you wanted to email me, it's okay, this is not going to surprise you, dianasussmanwrites@gmail.com. Because I figure simplicity is sort of easy to remember, right? And I would love to hear from people. I love connecting with my readers. One of my favorite things to do. I love writing and creating, but I love meeting the people who, have read the books or excited to read the books or moved by something I've said or done. And I mean, to me, the idea of having an impact and a connection is what it's all about. And I would love to hear from anybody who wants to reach out to me.
I love that. That's incredible. All right, I only have time for a couple more questions. So, I want to ask you like we've got to share a lot of your story, probably not the complete story, but like what's next on the horizon for you?
Well, besides The Texture Secret, which will be coming out, and then there's a third book, which is also in the works. As I said, it's set in Bermuda, but I don't want to say much more about that right now. I do have ideas for an adult novel that I'm thinking about. I have some picture book novels on the horizon. I have a musical that I wrote with three really good friends that we were in the New York City Sparks Festival, Theater Festival twice, and we are figuring out next steps for producing it. It's called Virtually Ours, about online dating, basically an AI driven app. And I must say, we came out with this way before Bumble did recently, but this was something we started well before COVID. And it's an AI driven app that basically runs amok due to catfishing apps and by somebody who's asked to put together someone's profile who really has a crush on this person. And it follows basically what happens to these five busy professionals who have no time to meet anybody and how topsy turvy their life becomes. And it's quite fun and funny. And I also have a play called Fickle Fate that is al- also about AI, but in a different way. Basically, this guy meets the same woman three times in New York City and decides she must be meant for him. This is kismet because who meets the same person randomly in New York City three times? So he's determined to make this work, but she falls for his roommate, which is problematic. And then he goes online to a dating app and falls in love with someone who happens to be this woman's roommate's avatar creation, who's not a real person, but he doesn't know it. And she's got this project to see if someone can fall in love with someone not having ever physically met them, and sort of like a modern Turing experiment. I don't know if you know if you're familiar with the Turing experiment, where you could tell if it's a computer or a person, if you talk to them. And so it's sort of like one step more, and then he has to eventually decide between the avatar and the person who created it. So it's kind of a fun play.
Wow, that
So
sounds so fun. You have so much on the horizon. I encourage everybody who's listening right now to go follow Diana on all of her social media so you can hear everything. And if you're like, Tiff, I'm just listening, it's in the show notes. So that way you could send me a message and I'll get you connected with Diana and then I'll get your email. The last question I have for you is oh my gosh, in all of your wisdom, what kind of nuggets should we leave everybody with to wrap up the show today?
don't let anyone else define you. Be who you think you should be. If you are curious about something or passionate about something, follow it, and don't let anybody tell you you shouldn't. Lucille Ball, who is known as one of the most greatest comedians rather of all time, she was told she was a terrible actress and absolutely had no comic timing whatsoever. And she didn't let that stop her. And she was clearly proved that person wrong. So the bottom line is be who you are meant to be, and inside yourself who that is.
Wonderful advice. I love this so much. This has been such a good time to hang out with you. And I'm so excited that we got to meet and I got to share your story. And everybody that's listening, thank you for your time. And Diana, thank you for your time for coming on my show today. I'm so happy that I'm able to share your story with as many people as I possibly can. And I look forward to seeing everybody that's listening in to the next episode. And everybody go have a wonderful day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.